Dear Grace, today's episode will be a little bit different. I'm going to respond to some Joe Rogan clips. He's doing a podcast about moon landing. They're talking about photography, and they're missing a key point, which I'm going to explain. First, let's watch the clip. Not just a few seconds.
You say they removed the transparency. Well, there's no transparency. You don't see it. You're literally just seeing black figures in motion. Now, in clarity, now you see clarity. So now you see the amount of distance, very small space they're working in. Amount of distance where...
Alright, so I'll explain the controversy. So the belief by Joe's guest is that the astronauts were just in near Earth orbit and faked the image of the whole Earth by shooting through a round window, to make it look like the Earth. And from the actual footage, when you look at it, well, it sucks. I mean, you can't see any continents or anything, because I don't need the camera on. But my point is, or what they're missing is, so the skeptic believes that they're in low Earth. Joe said that they could be where they said they were, which was 100,000 miles away, but because the Earth is so big, it would fill the entire lens of the camera. Unfortunately, that's where Joe is wrong. I asked ChatGPT, maybe I should have left that camera on. I asked ChatGPT, I said, do you know the field of view of a 24mm lens on a 35mm camera? It said it did. So I said, how far away would the camera have to be to get the entire Earth into its field of view? And its answer, well, I did a bunch of math, blah, 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 some 10, blah, blah, who cares? So the camera would need to be approximately 1,114.36 kilometers away from the Earth to view the entire globe using 24mm lens on a 35mm camera. And it really doesn't matter if that was a medium format or anything. I mean, a 24mm lens is pretty easy to acquire, and they don't have to be 1,000 kilometers away. And in the video, they're saying that everything right now is about, or as far as they can go, is 250 miles away. So is it bullshit? I don't know. But it should have been really easy to take a photo, and it should have been really easy, like the guest says, is just to have a camera on the side of the shuttle shooting continually, or capsule, or whatever the fuck they called it. And that would make more sense. I mean, if this is the greatest event of all time, wouldn't you want to videotape the whole fucking thing? And also, the camera is shaky as fuck. If you're in zero gravity, it should be fairly easy to stabilize, or be stabilized with the craft at least. And if they're shoved against the glass so that there's no reflection, then it definitely shouldn't be moving around like it does. So it's clear that that's like a handheld camera. It's not pushed against the glass. So anyways, I'm just saying, to me that would make sense, even though the Earth is big. Just do the math. I'll read one news story. Scientists accidentally discover a new organ in the human body. Apparently there's some glands around the nose or back of the face or something that they never noticed before. Maybe that's my problem. I've got a glandular issue, that's why I can't talk. First experimental proof for brain-like computer with water and salt. Alright, I'm going to go back to listen to Joe. And this is going to be a stop and start instead of 1 hour continual. I realized, Grace, I could record right from my phone. So here's a little clip from Joe Rogan.
Line up exactly
Right.
on top of one another. So
Yeah, it's supposedly many miles apart, but yet the backgrounds look the same.
yeah, the AI said the picture they had of an astronaut on this vast background was a miniature. It wasn't even a real astronaut.
Yeah, I want to see more of that. And that
So they're talking about AI saying all the moon landing photos are fake, which is very interesting. But I don't actually have a comment. Just going to comment at the end of this. I'll give you a summary, and we'll go from there. Unless I say something interesting between 2 minutes and 15 and 3 hours and 8.
On the other side, they start literally looping around as I'm running from side to side being chased by these people. I flag down a cab who takes me to CNN in Atlanta, where I have a friend who works there. And I'm literally trying to give them the tape through the back door. This is all in my book. Maybe it'll make a great movie someday. And I'm abducted by government agents in an unmarked white van who handcuff me. And I can hear them behind me say, well, where's the thing? I thought you had the thing. Oh, he's got the thing. They're all wearing rubber gloves. They put something on my wrist that looks like something you get when you go into a hospital. And within 1 minute, I feel like I'm on LSD to the point where I'm throwing up. That's what the thing was, you see? They put me in a van. They start interrogating me. I escaped their custody.
how'd you do that?
Well, you got to read the book. It's a long story. I make my way back to Nashville. I pee in a cup. I say, I got him. I'm going to show my news director at NBC that I've been drugged by this exotic true serum drug, because I told them everything they wanted to know. You don't have to waterboard anybody, okay?
What do you think, Grace? Do you think he's telling the truth? Did you watch this podcast? Does he seem credible to you?
And I take it to a lab. I give it to a friend to put in the lab in his name, right? Because I'm trying to outwit the CIA, right?
Right.
I check back with him a few days later. He says, Bart, well, there was a problem at the lab. And I'm like, well, what problem? He says, well, they had a break-in over the weekend. And I'm like, yes, so what? He says, well, funny thing, the only thing stolen was a urine sample. And the people at the lab are like, we don't know who you are, but take your business elsewhere. And so all of this is in...
I'm not sure what to think, Grace. I'll wait till the end. I said earlier that, or yesterday, that Joe was going to change news forever. I think this is why. He just has an ability to bring it down to the lowest common denominator.
airbags in car. Imagine the harassment to a reporter who has proof that they faked the moon landing. And now, in my book that just came out, we have an eyewitness who says he saw them fake the moon landing at Cannon Air Force Base and even admitted to killing a coworker to cover it up.
Okay, let's go over some of the
Sorry,
things that people would say to try to debunk some of these claims. And let's go over specifically the Van Allen radiation belts. So
What's interesting, Grace, is that sometimes it looks like he's looking down at notes. But I know he's not, because he's looking up at the wall.
the explanation, the official explanation as to how the astronauts were able to get through the Van Allen radiation belt safely? Because I know that people have disputed this, and it is something that people talk about all the time because it's the number one thing that people say,
Well, they're contradicting themselves because we just showed Kelly Smith, who said the field of radiation is dangerous, that we need to develop shielding before we send people through this region of space. So the shielding to send people through it so they don't die has not been invented as of 2014.
Also could have meant the shielding for the instruments so they don't.
No, he said people.
No.
We must develop this technology before we send people through this region
I was
of
agreeing
space.
with that, but so the instruments don't break, so that the ship doesn't.
Well,
die,
that too.
which will then harm the people.
right, but that was what we were talking about earlier.
But
we were talking about the instrument.
All right, Grace. Joe's going to give his opinion. I hope this is working, that you can actually hear, but we'll find out. Or, I mean, hear without the fucking echo.
Then they have to recreate it, and they haven't done that yet.
Really, they
that's
invented the
explanation.
automobile and threw it in the ocean, and now they're having to reinvent the automobile.
I'm just, like I said, I'm just devil's advocate. Or
Yeah,
whatever
but
you
the
wanna say.
So I got to back.
49.
Well, the idea is that they did solve them, and then that technology was lost, and they have to recreate it, and they haven't done that yet.
Really, they
that's
invented the
explanation.
automobile and threw it in the ocean, and now they're having to reinvent the automobile.
I'm just, like I said, I'm just devil's advocate. Or
Yeah,
whatever
but the
you wanna
point
say.
is that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense that they
So
destroyed the
you
information.
said you were going to share your
Here we go,
opinion
please.
about what you think about it. What do you think?
Well, there's no way I know, right? We're all speculating. There's no way I know. But all this shit looks very suspicious. Like, mostly suspicious. Like, not a lot of it makes sense. Just logically, if you look at the timeline between 1969 and 2024 and the amount of progress that has taken place in actual outside of Earth's orbit space travel, it's non-existent by human beings. Another question is, did they ever manage to get anything alive through the Van Allen radiation belts and have it come back to Earth before they tried it out with people? Did they do it with a monkey? Did they do it with a chicken? Did they send anything into space and have it come back alive?
Not officially. They may have done it unofficially and not report.
Again, Joe Rogan knows just what to ask. Sounds a little nasally today, but like he says, allergies.
The micrometeor
Well, and the fuel.
and the fuel.
Because Elon Musk, he's a smart guy. He says it's going to take 9 fuel trips in order to have
See if
enough
you can
fuel.
find him saying that,
I
Jamie.
think it's 8.
8.
I looked it up.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8. 8
So
fuel trips.
Pull up him saying that.
I think he's made it more efficient now. He's made bigger containers. So, now
So
it's
what do
only
people
8.
that are confronted by this information that wanted to refute it, what do they say?
Well, the college professor I talked to said even a confession from Buzz Aldrin that the moon missions were fake wouldn't dissuade him from the glorious moon landings. He would still think they were real
Elon
anyway.
Musk says it would take 8 Starship launches to fuel up a single moon trip. Elon Musk isn't entirely sure how many Starships it will take.
I would just for that's without creating a new rocket to create a new payload to create the amount of fuel they'd have to take. That's just
Yep.
what they already have. Just
Yeah,
to
he
do.
Right.
said the moon landings were a historical anomaly, meaning they're out of place to have had greater technology in the past and in the future. I believe he knows that the moon missions are fake, but he needs cooperation with NASA to fulfill his dreams, and
What do you think of that, Grace?
he's playing ball. I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That
To be fair, NASA is his biggest client. Also, to be fair, I don't think he'd hide anything from the public.
makes sense.
But on the other side, maybe.
Again, this is one of those subjects, and this is why so many people are reluctant to take it on. But if you even talk about the moon landing being fake or entertain a person like yourself that says this, you're automatically put in the category of being a fool.
Isn't
Well-
that interesting? If the truth comes out, it will bring down the corruption. It's the linchpin. The moon landing fraud coming out has to happen, or we will never have honest government ever again.
Let's look at the Apollo 11 post-flight press conference, because this is a weird one. because these guys just returned from the moon, and they look like they're in a hostage video.
Boy, they look like they're at the funeral of their mother.
It does not seem like these are happy guys who just returned from the moon. Scooch ahead a little bit. Here we go. So look how nervous they look. Look at Michael Collins fidgeting. And obviously you would be nervous. You're addressing all these people. But it's the tone in which Neil Armstrong takes. And then after this, we're going to show the 25th anniversary speech, which is one of the most bizarre.
Thanks for drifting, Chris.
Yeah, go to him talking. Let's right about.
Over its
I
developing
actually saw
and
this one,
unfolding.
not this, but...
Go.
I can't remember specifically which moon landings I saw on TV. It'd have to be the latest one, or the last ones, because I was pretty young, but I do remember seeing the people gathering around. It's probably a false memory, who the fuck knows.
Back a little bit. Go back a little bit so you can hear
It's
from.
an adventure.
Here we go.
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade. We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things.
It looks very odd. Another odd thing was that Michael Collins said that he couldn't see stars, but yet he wrote in his 1994 book about how magnificent the stars looked.
And
Also, he never left the lunar orbiter.
that's right. And also, when he's asked about stars, Neil Armstrong says, "I don't recall." And then Michael Collins, to fill in for him, to help him out, says, "I don't remember seeing any,"
Yeah.
which he wasn't there. They were all three orbiting the Earth, so they had the same experience, but he forgot. So if you get the written transcript of that, the "I don't remember seeing any," they change it to Buzz saying it. You see, lightning strikes twice in the same place. What a coincidence.
You'd have to think, Grace, that outside of the Earth's atmosphere, the stars must be fucking amazing. So pretty good through the Earth's atmosphere if you're at the right spot. So without it, unless you're looking straight into the sun all the time, it should be fucking amazing. But I may be wrong. Who am I? Let's let Joe figure it out. 18 minutes.
First, a typo that says Buzz said it instead of Michael Collins, and then in the video, Michael Collins answering a question he should know nothing about, having not been on the moon surface.
And it gets attributed to Buzz Aldrin because
That's
it's
right.
not convenient. But if you watch
because
the video,
they didn't have YouTube
Right.
videos back then, people got the transcript. They said, we need to correct that.
right,
Michael Collins wasn't there.
Right.
So they said Buzz said it.
yeah.
So they're covering for it.
Let's play the 25th anniversary speech. Because here's one of the craziest things. Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, doesn't give interviews, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to appear publicly, becomes kind of a recluse. And you would imagine that a guy who didn't want fame and all of a sudden he's thrust into the public light, like that would be a real problem. He probably didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, didn't enjoy being...
Interesting. What do you think, Grace?
the center of attention and said, you know what, I was on the moon, but I'm just going to just lay back. You could look at it that way. Or you could look at it like, if you have a guy from a public relations perspective, he's one of those, you know what, I was on the moon, but I'm just going to just lay back. You could look at it that way. Or you could look at it like, if you have a guy from a public relations perspective, he's one of the most valuable people to interview of all time.
Which is why Joe has and continues to change the world, in my opinion, whoever I am.
He's the first man to walk on another planet. He walked on the moon. The first man we sent him to another planet. He landed on our moon and he walked around and we got video footage of it. That guy would be a hero. He would be everywhere. They would interview him constantly. Just from a PR standpoint, you would kind of force that guy to do some interviews and talk about it, because it's the most incredible accomplishment in human history. As far as what human beings have been able to do, it's the most significant.
If true. Is what he wants to say, but he won't.
Technological breakthrough ever. We put a person on another fucking planet, right? But he doesn't do that. He doesn't talk to anybody. And then he gives a speech. So this is a speech at the 25th anniversary of NASA, and he's giving this speech to is it American valedictorians, high school valedictorians, like some of the best, brightest high school kids?
When Clinton was president.
Yeah, and so this speech is so bizarre. I've never seen anybody give a rational explanation as to what the hell he is saying, other than he's trying to tell you that something is bullshit. So listen to this speech.
Ready, Chris?
In 1994, Neil Armstrong made a rare public appearance and held back tears as he spoke these brief cryptic remarks before the next generation of taxpayers as they toured the White House.
Today we have with us a group of students among America's best. To you, we say, we have only completed a beginning. We leave you much that is undone. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean?
I think he's trying to say something. You know,
that is one of the most cryptic things I've ever heard anybody say publicly.
You can also notice that he was looking down, except that part he had memorized. Perhaps someday you'll be able to remove one of truth's protective layers. About the moon landing. How about that?
Bizarre.
As he's holding back tears, in my opinion. You know how many pictures there are of him on the surface of the moon, posing as the first man on the moon? A still picture. 0. I went to the archives personally, a vault. I had the employees, I said, find me a picture of Neil Armstrong on the surface of the moon, a still picture. They went in and out, scratching their heads. He refused to have his picture taken. He refuses to give interviews unless the president asks him to. You see? Not a single picture, because he didn't want to have anything to do with it. It disgusted him. I believe they asked him to participate in the fraud, and at that point he was a noble man. He said, no, thank you. Then they said, you don't want to end up like Apollo 1 crew, do you? The guy's a test pilot. I don't think threatening his life meant a whole lot.
That's a tough one to prove, but we'll come back at the end.
Blowing the whistle would blackmail.
I know Joe's sniffing a lot in this episode, but I understand. I've had allergies. I know what it's like. Get a full breath in. Alright. Ready, Grace? Are you ready, Grace? Let's listen to the ending. I really don't think Substack has any sort of system to check whether this is allowed in quotation marks or not. To me, this is fair use, but who the fuck knows? Luckily, I don't think too many people are watching this, so I don't really think it matters. You ready? Are you ready, Grace? Are you ready? Let's go.
As a more valuable to tool of the information. I think that's what the Soviets are doing too. We're being blackmailed. It's another good reason for the truth to come out, so we won't be blackmailed by China and Russia anymore.
What do you think would happen if definitive proof came out, if Trump opened up all the files, if everybody started talking about it, and definitive proof was we got to a point technologically where we are ready to travel to other planets? We realize, hey, this is impediment, and this impediment could not have possibly been traversed by the Apollo astronauts.
Well, if the truth came out, acknowledged by the government, it would be a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful moment in history. Because the faking of the moon landing is so much more significant than if they had actually gone. It shows the sad fallen state of mankind. It would be like throwing a glass of water in the public's face. They wake up, they realize they've been sleepwalking, and they look down, and they're 1 foot away from a cliff. It would be dead silence. Oh my gosh, that's who we are. Not just as a nation, but as a species. We can't even tell the truth about such a thing.
But wouldn't the problem then be we would have to revamp the entirety of government? If that's the case, the intelligence agencies have done this. If they really did kill Kennedy, if they really did fake the moon landing, if they really did all the things that we think they did, no one would have faith in them anymore.
That's right. And maybe that'll happen. And so be it. You know, the stock market could crash. The dollar could crash. It could ruin the reputation of the United States of America. But we have a gangrene limb. William Benny, you know, worked for the NSA for 30 years. He says the CIA, the NSA, they're spying on the private cell phone conversations of Supreme Court justices to get dirt on them, to blackmail them into voting the way the CIA and NSA tell them. That's a dangerous situation for a country to be in. There needs to be a major, major house cleaning. I'm not even sure what would happen if, let's say, all the federal government ran on electricity and you could unplug it all with one plug. I'm not sure what would happen to you and me and everyone else's life if we unplugged the federal government. I don't know why we can't just have the independent states of America and manage our own affairs, because they are so corrupt. They're killing their own president. They're starting war after war based on lies and fabrications.
What do you think, Grace? I kind of disagree with that. I think fuck states and provinces, have one central government for the entire country. Because it's stupid that if I drive a certain number of miles to another province, all of a sudden everything fucking changes. Isn't this Canada? Shouldn't be the same basically in every province? I'm not saying it's outrageous from one province to the other. What I'm saying is
right? We have so many murders of people that they have done themselves. The federal government is killing their own people, and we're funding it. It's wrong. What they're doing is morally wrong. Our leaders are gangsters.
What are we missing? Like, what have we not covered? We've basically done this right now. We're at like 3 hours plus. We've been talking about this. What have we left out? Anything?
Well, I think we've covered most of it. We have the fact that shadows can't intersect unless it's electrical light. We have footage.
I didn't look at those photos, Grace, but I agree. Any shadow on the moon, there's only one light source, so they all have to be in the exact same direction. And I also agree that any light source from the sun is going to be, I don't want to say a billion, but a lot stronger than anything from the Earth for sure. The light reflection from the Earth is fuck all. Now, the light reflection from the capsule, if it was in the perfect alignment, could be a perfect fill light. But also that fill light would only work for a certain area. So as soon as you walked out of it, then no longer would it work. And that's just to refute some of the I'm not sure if it's here or somewhere else, about how astronauts, the backside of the astronaut was visible, even if it's a single light source, it shouldn't be. But again, who the fuck knows?
Of them faking being halfway to the moon. We have the deathbed testimony of an.
Now, the halfway to the moon thing, I agree. If you're halfway to the moon, you should be able to just stick anything out that window, any lens from 24 millimeters to 600 would still barely fill the frame. And AI can confirm that. Doesn't take a fucking scientist.
Eyewitness who saw them filming Apollo 11 at Cannon Air Force Base. And we have the fact that you can't travel 1,000 times further into space in 1969 on the first attempt with 1 minute the computing power of a cell phone than you can 50 years later. Technology has never been better in the past and in the future.
I agree with that, especially with any sort of remote control cameras. That seems possible but unlikely. The amount of data that needs to be sent isn't huge, but still, it's just something weird about that level of remote control. And again, like he says, with that level of remote control back then, by now, we should have remote control on every fucking thing. We should be able to just sit here and...
Future. That proves it. If it weren't a sweet lie that people loved and don't want to give up, people would see the truth for what it is.
That's an interesting thing, too, that you said it's a positive lie.
It is.
Yeah, it's not a lie like that got us into a war that wound up killing innocent civilians that we know happens.
JFK is dead, and all the people in 9/11 are dead, regardless of who did it and why. This is different. This is taking candy away from people and giving them manure. They're defending the candy.
Okay. Would you be willing to debate somebody? If
Sure.
I get someone to come on here and prepare and talk to you and refute all this stuff?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll put that out there, because I would like to see that. I would
Okay.
like to see how someone describes that away
Okay.
and what they think about this. Because I'm sure there's eyeballs rolling and fingers hitting keyboards right now. People are going to get very outraged at this conversation. But I don't think the right way to handle this is to not talk about it or to silence someone. I think if you're wrong, the right way is to let you lay out your best argument and have someone refute that best argument. So I hope that...
Sure, Grace, but isn't this what news was meant to be?
at least is attempted.
Okay.
And you've been at this a long time, Bart. You look tired of talking about the moon landing?
Well,
how long have you been at this for?
It's a historic importance because the faking of the moon landing for mankind is more significant than if they'd actually gone. That they lied to the world, embezzled money, murdered their own people to cover it up. And to not know that truth is like having cancer and not knowing. We have to know. We can have a great awakening about everything else, but if we still are deceived about the greatest accomplishment of mankind, you see, then there is no great awakening. It's a spiritual issue. It's a spiritual battle between truth. It's ironic. You know, there was a famous writer who said about the Tower of Babel, the monument to their pride became a memorial to their folly. And if the truth comes out, that will happen.
Do you think that this is a subject that even intelligent people that get this information of a resonance, it resonates with them, that they're going to try to ignore?
Well,
because
yeah,
it's so controversial that you instantly get labeled a kook if you believe this.
The problem with intelligence is people can be smart, but only within a narrow field. Like I asked my doctor, get this, what do you know about natural medicine? You know what they said? Virtually word for word. All I know is what pill to prescribe for this illness that I was taught in university. That's all I know. They're intelligent within that narrow field, but they can't critically think. And universities are universal thinking. I was forbidden by the University of Pittsburgh after having a contract to speak to a student body group about the moon landing fraud. They forbid it. And the free speech, free expression, United States of America. You see, this is...
Tomorrow, Grace, remind me to talk about First Amendment audits. Please and thank you. You ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
Major problem. People are emotional about this. They have to be willing to be wrong, and people are so arrogant. I mean, a college professor teaching aerospace who says if Buzz Aldrin confessed on national TV that it was fake, filmed at Cannon Air Force Base, just like Bart said, he would still think he walked on the moon anyway. That's what we're up against. This is a god to them. The god of science is putting a man on the moon when it's really just propaganda.
All right, Bart. I think you've eloquently stated your case, and I think you've been at this, like I said, for a long time. So I'm really hoping that someone will sit down and talk to you about this, and we can get further to the bottom of it, because the arguments are very compelling. The actual raw facts are very puzzling. The whole thing is very odd. It's a very odd case.
All this stuff people can investigate for themselves. Just go to Sabrel.com. There's 17 clips they can watch for free and then decide for themselves.
Okay. Thank you, Bart. Appreciate you, man.
No problem. Bye.
What do you think, Grace? Back to the news. Cannabis use linked to epigenetic changes, study reveals. Epigenetic.